All right, I see 5:30, so let's call to order the study session of the Cherry Hills Village City Council Tuesday, January 5th. And this is our existing um, council. And the first item, really probably the only item is Quincy Farm next steps discussion. And just as background, there have been some developments. Obviously, we had the development materials land preserve that sent us a letter, and then we've had some recent letters, flurry of them. I don't know if anybody's been able to read them today, but I think I've had requests from some of the council members to have a discussion about this too, and the direction, and get a report from Chris about where we are and any suggestions the city manager may have. So Chris, if you're ready, you could take it away and lead the study session.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. As the public and council may be aware, staff had been working on trying to on a potential way to get more public input into potential next steps into Quincy Farm. And staff had been working on a potential survey that might be sent to residents community-wide. And after working through some of that and talking with some council members offline, I think there was some concern about that process, logistically, procedurally, and then as the mayor mentioned, we did get a note from the land preserve that they were also interested in an additional proposal as well. And so I think staff thought it might be advisable to have a discussion about what a good next step might be. And as I had spoken with some folks one-on-one, there was an idea that was brought up that I think has some merit for council to consider, which would be to, and this was discussed in the meeting last month, I guess in November, the idea that there might be more proposals out there that might be of interest as well. And so I think the item for discussion tonight would really be, do we want to potentially not pursue a survey, but instead do a form of a request for proposal, whereby we would see if there's any interest from, in addition to Natalie's proposal, the land preserve would have an opportunity to put a proposal together, as well as anybody else that might have interest in a management structure. And it would also give Natalie an opportunity to continue to refine her proposal as well. And so I guess I would like to request from council input on potential next steps along those lines.
So I'm open to council members, maybe go down line by one by one and just see if your comments and thoughts about this. We have the packet. Thank you for pulling the packet together, Chris. Appreciate that. And I've read it, and I think we know it contains a copy of the easement and some description of the issues. And Natalie, and we know Natalie's she's spoken before council before. So do you want to start? Should I just go down the line? Councilor Blum, would you like to start, or?
Well, yeah, I will make a few comments. you know, Dan, I know, has got a good summary because we've discussed it. If we do this, I think the request has to be very specific on items that are of concern to council that came up at the last discussion. One of my big concerns, and I'll let other people go through what their concerns are, is actually two big concerns. One is the financial capability of whoever's going to respond to the proposal. And whether that's in fact putting specific guidelines in there, specific requirements. The biggest thing we face is the cost of maintaining this beyond 2021, 2022. And I think it's very important that whatever request for proposal we do, and I think it is a good idea, as Chris and I discussed today, is to have very specific items in there that we want to see addressed. The other thing is that the other major issue I've got, at least, is have some type of reverter or something that allows us to recover it if whoever it is that we award this to, if we do award it to somebody, is to have the right for the city to come back in at some point if they violate anything in the requirements that they're set up with the this thing that Kate Anderson set up. So with respect to that, I think it's very important. I think I am all in favor of having this go out on a request for proposal, but I think there's a lot of work that needs to go into what we're looking for in the proposal. And I'll yield the balance of my time to Dan.
Thank you, Councilor Blum. Councilor Sheldon.
That's a lot of pressure there, Al, to put on me.
Big run-up.
Well, I guess I am in receipt of an email with a couple of letters from Natalie this afternoon. Laura, was there something else that you said that there were a number of letters? I don't think you referenced from whom and how many, but
there were those two
I'm
from
in receipt of
Natalie,
those.
and
Were there
then
more that have come in since then?
Laura Chrisman sent one just after 4:30 that I forwarded to you all.
Okay.
Did you get that one?
I have not checked my email since then, but
It was a late
I'm
one.
sure it's in there. I have not had the ability to open that email yet, so I can't speak to that. But I guess I'm intrigued by the introduction of the Land Preserve's notice of intent to submit a proposal for the farm. At the same time, I'm intrigued, but I'm also disturbed. I'm disturbed, I think, for the same reasons that Natalie is, if I'm reading her letters right. I actually understand and welcome the Land Preserve's desire to manage the farm. But the manner in which it was introduced to us council, and the manner in which I believe the Land Preserve either failed, or maybe I didn't totally understand the chronology of events, but the manner in which they failed to notify Natalie, who was supposed to be their partner in her proposal, it troubles me. It's of serious concern to me, and I don't know what to make of it. Maybe there's more story that will unfold on this, but all that being said, I think that this experience, while again, it's going to delay the possible transfer of management and potentially ownership of the farm, I think it's probably at the end of the day a good thing. And I think that it's one that our citizens will benefit from. The path that we're on right now of trying to lay out a survey with only a limited number of options has been difficult, to say the least. For those who are on this call, the citizens on the call, and those from the Land Preserve and Natalie and anyone else, the trouble we've been having with this survey, trying to detail out what should go into the options, how many options should there be, and what if somebody has a better idea? It just became a daunting task. And so for that reason, I think the RFP path will allow us to reach our goal. And one of those goals should be for the city, as Al suggested, to spell out very clearly to a potential proposer what the city's requirements will be in order for us to have a harmonious and positive outcome here for both the city and its residents. And obviously it has to work and be a good outcome for the proposer, the transferee, if you will. So with that, I guess I'd ask that we all remain patient. I know this is probably not the news that Natalie wants. It's probably what the Land Preserve wants, is for us to slow things down and allow them the time to get through this February date that they gave us. But I think it's a bigger question now, a question that we're going to put out there to the world. And I don't know if we're going to have a grand total of 2 interested parties, meaning Natalie and the Land Preserve, or if we have 20 proposers. I don't know what to expect. I think clearly it's incumbent upon us council members to do what's right for our citizens. And I think right now, the right thing for us is to allow for as much opportunity as possible and shake every limb on that tree and see what comes out. So I think with that, we remain patient. We let this process go through the next steps and see what comes out the other side. So that's it for me for now.
Thank you, Council. Appreciate that, Councilor Sheldon. Councilor Gallagher, your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. Comments to make. First of all, I want to thank the people. Here we are today, and we're trying to move this process forward. I want to thank all the people sort of historically who've been involved in this, the Visioning Committee, the Quincy Farm Committee, who's worked so diligently on a master plan, Cherry Hills Land Preserve, who's tried to contribute in the management up to this date with their programming, and then finally Natalie and her family. And to keep it at a high level, I would say that the RFP makes a lot of sense at this point. I think we need to gather parties involved, go through the RFP process, and then I would encourage us, it's time to move this on. And as a community, make some decisions. We as a council make some decisions and move this forward. We're not going to please everyone. That's clear as a bell. And yet we want to be as transparent and as forthright with our decisions, keeping in mind that at the end of the day, CAT gave this gift to the city, and it is for our community that our decisions should be driven by our community and the interest that our committee can have and the access to this magnificent property. Given that, I think it's really important that we have a very clear, agreed upon checklist of items that we need to cover in this RFP. And I would think things, I'm speaking the obvious, like number one, who's going to own the place? Is it going to be the city? Is it going to be a third party? Is it going to be a not-for-profit? And so that should clearly be part of that survey. And then secondly, it would be the scope. What's the scope of the programming that this group would have in mind? And by scope, I mean, how is it going to actually be part of the farm that fits with conservation easement, and yet most importantly, it allows access of our community into this property. The other two areas are number one, funding. Who and how are we going to fund the ongoing programming that takes place over the course of a year? And then secondly, how are we going to fund the capital projects that are so dearly needed and now and in the future? So a very clear, really clear answer from these people who would be submitting proposals. And then I think we should think about, I think it was Dan's comment, you know, how big do you make this? How far do you send it out? Do you send it just to our local people, the not-for-profits that we're all aligned with at this point? Do you send it out in a greater area to, at a statewide basis, across various jurisdictions? And then I think there's probably an argument that you would go to our community and you would ask them, because there's some really bright people out there who probably have ideas that if they were asked, they could contribute to this effort. That, i.e., we should be thinking about X, and And so I don't know how you would actually administer that aspect of it, but I think it's something we should think about, discuss, so that we don't limit ourselves, but then we don't make this an absolute ridiculous RFP that goes out everywhere. So we should be rather a little more rifle directed as opposed to shotgun directed. So, and then finally, I think this needs to be done on a reasonable time frame. We need to get this can't take 6 months. It's not appropriate that it takes 2 weeks, but we need a happy medium. We've got all this history that has been put in place at this time. We've got a master plan that has been, well drafted, almost done. I mean, there's a lot of work that's gone into it. So I think we put a reasonable time frame on it, and then get these proposals back and start making some, do our interviews and make decisions. And that is the end of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gallagher. Councilor Wheel, thoughts? Oh, you're on mute, Randy.
There we go. Much better. Sorry for that. Yeah, I think it's all been said. We have struggled to get traction. I think it was too amorphous to do, even though I was supportive of it at the time, it turned out to be too amorphous to really go out for public input. So I think an RFP is absolutely the right way to go. And we should, review the solicitation process so that we don't end up, buried, but at the same time we get broad coverage. And I certainly agree with the rest of it, which is a financial capability reversion if things aren't delivered. I mean, it was a gift to the community, and so we've got a fiduciary responsibility to represent the community's interests. So that's where I'm at. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Wheel. Finally, Councilor Safavi.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I want to echo what the other councilors said, as well as add a couple more points. I do want to go ahead and again stress that, at least for me also, as Dan mentioned it, there's a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth, because if somebody sits next to you and says, they sit next to you to come up with a solution as a partner, and then a few weeks later they turn around and they all of a sudden are a competition or competing for the same thing that you were working toward, to me, that's not a good way to do business anyway. So I just wanted to mention that. So Land Preserve had quite a bit of time all these years to go ahead and step up and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and take ownership or whatever that needed to do. And all of a sudden we got a proposal from Ms. Anderson, and here comes sort of the information we got a month ago. With that being said, I want to view this in a positive manner and say, okay, as a couple of the other councilors mentioned, this hopefully will lead into something positive and probably a better deal maybe for the city and for the property. So with that being said, and before going further, I want to talk about, again, timelines. Councilor Gallagher talked about timeline. We don't want to make this a 6-month process, and I fully agree with that. So whatever we come up with, let's set up a timeline deadline for it. Because let's say we give somebody a 1-month deadline to come back with their final proposal, and maybe after that we give them a week of coming out with a revised proposal or answering questions. I think how they actually the speed at which they come back with their RFP, with their ideas, with the changes, I think that's going to also be an indication of how they're going to move this project forward. If it takes somebody or an organization, individual organizational, wait until last minute to jump into the game, or respond to us, I would make assumption, a good assumption, that that's how they're going to be moving this project forward. So for that particular reason, I don't want to make this, in my opinion, a long process. We come up with a reasonable amount of time and say, here's the RFP, and provide your first draft. We will review it, within a week or a couple of weeks. And as council, we also need to probably put some extra time to meet and move this forward. But to me, you got to make this decision, I think, within the next 3 months and finalize it. So don't let this thing drag on. In terms of the other part for me is, when I'm thinking about inclusion, exclusion criteria, I heard about inclusion criteria and financial capability. If they don't deliver, we should be able to take the property back. Adhering to some of the things that were that we have talked in the past probably a year, couple of years, in terms of what are the requirements for this piece of property that we need to adhere to. So we need to come up with a set of inclusion criteria. Now, in terms of exclusion, I personally don't want to open this up to the entire all the organization in the US. I don't want somebody who basically manages a couple of parts in Utah to come and say they want to go ahead and manage a property here in Cherry Hills Village. So for me, I don't want to exclude too much, but at the same time, I want to give the priority to the people that actually have a history with this property. And again, that includes, Ms. Anderson, the land preserve. So I feel like there are two ways to do this. One is we actually come up with a series through our research. The city will come through their research and say, these are the 50 potential or 20 potential, suitors, and we're going to go ahead and actually send the RFP only to these, these entities and individuals. And to me, that's a little bit more directed, because we also got to be in a position of what is best for the city, rather than just opening up to the whole world to just provide RFPs, because then we're also going to end up with the potential scenario. Well, on one hand, we might end up with only 2 proposals, just from Ms. Anderson and from Land Preserve. On the other side, we might end up with a very, very large number that now we have to go search through them. So that's something I'd like to go ahead and keep this somewhat limited, but I don't want to exclude somebody who's eagerly wants to come and actually provide RFP either. The rest of the items that the rest of the council members brought up, they're all valid, and I'm supportive of those. So again, the last thing, I want to stress, let's come up with the inclusion exclusion criteria. Let's not come up with a laundry list of 50 items for each one. Let's be very direct. 4 or 5 items that are probably most important in each one of those, probably 5 or 6 for inclusion, maybe 2 or 3 for exclusion. And then let's roll this timeline of maybe about 3 to 4 weeks to come up with an initial proposal, maybe a week for 10 days, but give them 2 weeks, 2 weeks for any additional question or revision that needs to be done. And then, but at the same time, we also got to go ahead and, as a council, come up with the city, start thinking about how are we going to go ahead and actually, differentiate between these? Is this going to be a grading method that we just score 1 to 10 in different categories? Because we can talk about these forever. So that's something else that I think we need to discuss. That's all. Back to you.
Thank you, Councilor Savati. Wow, I think that those are all good comments. Just a couple of things. I do agree with what was said here by the councilors, and particularly Councilor Blum. I agree. There are milestones and possibilities of reverter and reversion interest in the conveyance that we could put in there, conditions and covenants that would that can go along with this. That it's if the milestones aren't met, then it comes back to the city and it doesn't happen. So that's certainly all doable legally. And I think, there are issues with the Highline Canal. I think that the easement itself actually states that the Highline Canal will remain open to the public regardless of who owns it. So that's not really a legal issue, but there is an issue of who takes over the Highline, who's going to be responsible for maintenance of that part of it. And that's something that's negotiable. We might want to think about. I don't think the owner of this property really wants that. I assume they'd be happy not to have to take on the financial burden of those trees and all the maintenance along the Highline Canal. And that's something that's of course, very much interest to our village and our community. So other than that, I agree with all of the other comments here. And the timing is the thing. And Councilor Sheldon mentioned, slow down a little bit, and maybe that's, there's something to that. I mean, this is an important decision. I don't know that we need to rush it. Particularly, we need to give us enough time so that we can get real input, real RFPs, and talk to people, give everybody the chance to have discussions and meet with people in the community to see what's there. If it could be at the end of the day, we don't take any of these proposals, and then or we decide against them. So I don't know. But I do think that we have an obligation. I think we have from the Anderson family, who has a management plan. They've given us a proposal. We have an obligation to respond to that in a reasonable amount of time. And I think, and I've mentioned to them before that we're a city. We have to have an open process, and that an RFP is would be a potential path that we would take. And I think the Anderson family said that they were aware of that, and they're fine with that. So, and I do want to caution people too about Cheerios Land Preserve and the Anderson and the communications. We just don't know enough really to know what went on there, about the communications. It's hard to say about what happened, but I hope we can, it's really not in our interest. What our interest is getting the process out there, getting the RFP done, and then see where we are. We'll see who responds, and then we can take it from there. So what happened in the past really doesn't matter as much right now if we're just deciding on this process. Those are my thoughts. Chris, you have more to say?
Yeah. So just a couple things. I feel like I'm hearing some consensus, but I want to try and synthesize that and see if council is in agreement. Because the second part is, I think it would make a lot of sense for council in the regular meeting to make a motion to direct staff to work on an RFP more formally. So before we get there, I want to make sure that we're all sort of on the same page with what I'm hearing. I am hearing there is support for an RFP process. That seemed to be pretty clear. I'm hearing that when we draft an RFP to bring back to council to bless, that there are some elements that it sounds like there's really a lot of consensus on this for a few elements. One is that the conservation easement must stay. That's sort of a criteria of the RFP. Second is that we want to understand and have be submitted to us what the ownership or the structure of that would look like, whether it's a nonprofit or a foundation or whatever, or the city keeping it or whatever it may be, that we want that to be a part of their submittal. Another part of their submittal needs to talk about the funding or fundraising that backs up their particular proposal. Another one is, so this would be the fourth one I have, programming related, especially as that relates to public access and what that might look like for a given time period. I also, this is one I sort of heard this one in passing, so I guess I wouldn't mind confirmation on this one more explicitly. I did hear some discussion about submitting ideas about timelines or benchmarks for when certain milestones would be taken, whether that was for public access or capital investment into the property. I'm not sure if I heard that right. And then finally, some discussion. I don't know if maybe this doesn't need to be in the RFP or not, but there is an appetite for reversion opportunities should terms not be met. But I have a couple more questions. But before I move on to those, that's sort of the notes I took. How does that sound to everyone?
Mayor, if I
Yeah,
may.
go ahead, Councilor Sheldon.
Chris, I think you hit them all on the head. I guess a question that I might ask is, we don't have to define exactly what the criteria of the RFP is tonight. If we go into regular session, which I want to hear from those, if we have scheduled to hear from tonight on this topic, right? I think we have people signed up to speak to this. But if we do decide to go down this RFP path, we certainly don't have to decide tonight what the criteria is and what specific questions will need to be answered. And do we have right of reverter and for this or milestones for that? Or none of that has to be decided tonight. That can be something that staff works with staff and staff works with council offline to try to define that and craft that here over the next several days and possibly weeks. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. I think especially once we get into the regular meeting and there's a motion to direct staff, it can just be a motion to direct staff to work on the RFP. I was just trying to make sure that, you know, it certainly is going to be a benefit to us if we understand through this, you know, this discussion part that we're hearing the feedback and some of the elements that you know, council members are talking about correctly, because it'll really help us draft, you know, an RFP more closer to council's expectations so that we're hitting the mark. That's all. We definitely don't need to form and vote and you know, have everybody nod their head on a checklist tonight. Absolutely not. I'm just trying to make sure that we're getting the major categories in place. I don't want this RFP to be longer than it needs to be.
Chris,
Yeah,
I
Councilor
think-
Wheel.
Yeah, thank you. I think the other things that I heard, ownership structure came up in some of the dialogue, and there's sort of a overarching, the RFP is sort of the document, and then we've got this question of the process around the document. How broad we're gonna cast the net, you know, how we're gonna make sure enough people see it that we've got good coverage, but we're not bringing in all kinds of extraneous possibilities as well, you know, that we keep it manageable. So I think that and then the Afshin raised the point as well about scoring and how we're going to, so I think there's a process question about distribution, not just the content of the RFP, which you've hit hard, and then the evaluation of the RFP as well, that I picked up on.
Councilor Savabi?
And Chris, you summarized that very nicely. The only thing I did not hear, again, in the event, again, if the staff can also think about potentially exclusion criteria, right? I mean, one exclusion is that if you're a criminal and you've killed 5 people, you can't go and, you know, run this. But I'm exaggerating, of course, in this case. But if the, you know, we can actually, you know, if then you guys, as you guys discuss it, you may come up with a couple of exclusion criteria to make sure that we bring the right people to bid on this, or the right institutions to bid on this RFP. That's all. Back to you.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Blow.
a couple of points. Number one, I don't think we're going to get a lot of outside interest on this. I think right now we have 2 people who are definitely interested. And I agree with you, Mayor, that we do not need to push a fixed timeline on this. I think we've got to take our time, pursue this, and step through all the information. One question I do have, if this is, let's say it's conveyed to an individual or not a nonprofit, does then Cherry Hills tax that particular piece of ground if it's not in a nonprofit?
Yes.
So that's a major revenue question, and I've always worked on the finance side. That's something that's got to be considered also.
Most of the revenue goes to Arapahoe County and the school district, but yes, you're right.
Whatever little bit we keep.
It would go back on the tax rolls if it was to a private entity, unless they converted it somehow, or they got an agricultural exempt, you know, agricultural designation, which was part of the Anderson proposal, and that would reduce it significantly.
That makes sense.
But I think I agree with that too, Chris. I would say the last 2 you mentioned, you might want to, you know, the RFP simply gets a proposal to us, and that just starts the negotiations. So we can always put on conditions and milestones depending on what the proposal looks like. Obviously, they may be different depending on what the proposal looks like. So I think we can keep a pretty high level, saying, you know, give us your suggestions without getting into too much detail, And then once we get the proposal, we can say what's appropriate as far as negotiating with milestones or conditions as we think might be appropriate, given the ownership and title and things like that.
So maybe take out that fifth item that I had about timelines and benchmarks.
Yeah, I think if somebody's going to propose that we own, city continue to own it, those aren't going to be, well, they may be a lot different milestones than they would be for somebody else.
Sounds good.
A question that comes up is, what if you have, let's say, groups that are specializing in programming? Do we want to, how do we fit a group like that? That could be an outstanding programming entity that has lots of experience with it. And, you know, I'm thinking in our own community, we've got not-for-profits out there that are like that. How do we fit those in? But that being said, they want nothing to do with the ownership of the entity or the maintenance of it. And I guess, how do we fit? Does that preclude them from jumping into the game?
No, I think we'd encourage them to partner with somebody else. I mean, the proposal would include partnerships that they would, you know, expect to see and expect to bring to the table. All of those,
Yes.
St. Mary's, Kent Denver, Botanic Gardens, you know, all of the usual entities.
And I guess the question is, if they said, well, city, you go ahead and you keep it and you do this, you do the maintenance on it. I suppose we just have to listen to that. And,
Yep.
So.
Quickly, Mary, and you know, I want to just maybe talk a couple minutes about the timeline. You know, when I talk about timelines, I don't want this to be a rush process. But if you don't come up with a proper timeline, things can get dragged for a long time. If we think that is reasonable, that we're going to come to a conclusion in 6 months from now, let's work toward that timeline. If you think 6 months is too long, not enough, you want to make it a year and a half, then let's say put that timeline and discuss it. But moving forward without some level of a reasonable timeline for any RFP, at least in my experience, have been disastrous, because then that's government. And I think we are a small city that we don't need to act like a government. We can probably act more like a little nimble company. So my recommendation is come up with a reasonable timeline around the turnaround time for RFP, around the responses, around our decision making, and go from there. So back to you.
I think that's a good point. All right. You know, we have to be off by 6:15 so that Laura can work it up. So is there any other comments before we sign off and take a break? And Chris, any other questions?
Yes. I think we've got enough at a staff perspective to bring back a draft RFP to at least get started. It'll need work after we give it back to council, certainly. But I think we've got enough information to at least get started on this.
And have it get started and then bring it back to our next meeting in January. I don't think, I'll defer to Kathy, but I don't think we really need a motion. I think staff now has enough to bring something to us in the next city council meeting. Do you agree, Kathy?
Well, I don't think it would hurt to have a motion in the regular meeting that just officially directs staff to take this action. The study session is for examining and understanding and asking questions. So I think it would be helpful
Okay.
to do it that way. And, you know, if there's a timeline you want to put back on it, that's a pretty short timeline between now and the next meeting for all those details, but I'll leave that up. That's of course up to council's discretion.
Yeah, we have a couple of weeks before we're going to act. Before we take any action on this, we'll have weeks to think about it. All right, any other comments before we sign off here? We will have some people who signed up to speak on this topic during citizen comment, so we can listen to their thoughts too. I know there were letters included in the packet from about half a dozen citizens as well. So any other comments before we take a break?
Mayor,
Yes.
I should just add briefly, I was remiss in not thanking, all the people that have worked hard, and Natalie for helping us get some traction and all that. So it's greatly appreciated.
Mayor, when we do go into regular session and we have public testimony during the public audience participation period, when would be the appropriate time to make a motion to, I don't see an item on the agenda for this topic. When would be a good time to make a motion to stop the work being done on the survey and pivot and go to an RFP? What point in the agenda?
Kathy, I mean, we could make it any time. Do you want to do, we could do it during new business. We can move the agenda around as ever we want to. So why don't we do it after during the new business, we could put it there and just make a mark. And Dan, if you want to think about a motion that time, that would be great.
And maybe you can, at the beginning of the meeting, move to amend the agenda to state that will be on, discuss that as a new item under new business. That's
all right. I can do that too. Very good. All right. That was very, very helpful. Good comments. I think now we'll take a break and let Laura do her thing.
Yeah, and if everyone could just stay on, you can mute yourselves and turn off your video, but if you could stay on, that'll help us to keep the participation list organized.
Laura, this is John. Were you planning on starting a new YouTube session or just keeping on with this one?
I was planning on keeping on with this one, but what works best for you?
It doesn't matter either way.
Okay, I'd rather just keep it going then, since it's going okay now.
Okay,
right.
it will be one video between the study session and the city council. Just want to make sure that's okay.
That's fine. We can just delete the other session then, the study session. And
okay, great.
Yeah, thank you for letting me know that.
Thanks.
Judge Wellborn, do you mind unmuting yourself so we can test your audio?
Hello.
Hello.
There you are. Thank you.
You have video too, Judge?
I got video.
Okay, great. We'll do that for the oath of office.
Perfect.
Howard, do you want to unmute yourself and just make sure you can hear us and we can hear you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, I have my finger on the space bar here. I don't seem to be able to do it otherwise.
Okay.
Let me just leave up and see what happens.
No, you're muted again now.
All right, I'll just hold my finger on the space bar.
Well, you talk, okay.
Why not?
That
I need to
works.
do something.
And
Oh, boy.
Christina, could you go ahead and unmute yourself so we can test your audio, please?
Judge Barsh, are you there?
I am here.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
And you have video too?
Yes.
You can see her, okay.
Can you hear me now?
So many people.
Hi, Christina. Yes, we can.
Yeah, I had to look for my microphone. Sorry,
You got it.
it was tiny.
Laura, we have a phone number.
No, I don't know who that is. I guess it could be David, Eric, or Laura. I guess let them in, and if it's somebody trying
I
to
will.
try to jump on it.
Okay, so whoever just joined with 720-987-3149, can you let us know who you are?
I guess it could be David, Eric, or Laura. I guess let them in, and if it's
They're watching on YouTube as well.
This is Laura. How do you want?
Hi,
Oh,
Laura. Great.
that's
Let us
perfect.
rename you. And
Yep. Laura, I got
That's
it
me.
up here.
thank you. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Laura.
Laura, how do you want?
Hi, Laura. Great.
And just for everyone who's joined, if you were watching on YouTube or the website, if you can close that session, or else we'll be hearing an echo of that audio playing back as you talk to us. So if you can just have this session open, that will be a big help. Hi, Eric. Could you unmute yourself so that we can test your audio?
I have unmuted.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and Jerry. So Jerry and David are the ones we're still waiting on?
Yes.
Okay, it's only just now 6:20 though, so yeah.
Yeah, that's everybody I have left. Okay. So that we can test your audio.
I have it muted.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so Eric, if you were watching on YouTube, please close the YouTube browser on your computer, or else when you talk later, it will echo.
There's Jerry.
Jerry, can you unmute yourself so we can make sure your audio works?
Yep.
Sorry, are you there, Jerry?
I am.
Oh, great. I can hear you now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura, do you have the I am trying to put my hands on the email with the oath of office attached, and I think somewhere in the email transmission, I lost the attachment to it. Do you have that handy where you might be able to just quick email me one?
Let me try to figure that out. Hold on one moment.
All right. Or I suppose if you put basically a generic one up, I can read along if that's on the screen. This might be easier.
Sure, I didn't quite prepare to do that, so let me try to figure out the best way here.
Yeah, I have a certain amount of surprises with electronic communication. I have the email, but I don't have the oath attached. That's the tricky part of this.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Found it. I'm good.
Oh, great.
I'm good. Yep. It was collapsed. Didn't dig deep enough.
All right, I have 6:30. So are you ready, Laura?
Yes.
Okay. So today we have actually two meetings. We have a meeting of the outgoing council, which we will meet and then approve the minutes because they were present at the last minutes. Then we'll adjourn the outgoing, and then we'll have, and actually in that section, we have a audience participation period. I'll take audience participation then, so the audience won't need to wait through the next meeting. The next meeting is the organizational meeting of the new city council, where we'll have oaths of office and take care of other business. So first thing we need for the final meeting of the outgoing city council. This is Tuesday, December 5th, 2021, City of Cherry Hills Village. I'll call it to order. And Laura, could we have a roll call, please?
Counselor Safavi?
Here.
Counselor Wheel?
Glad to be here.
Counselor Brown is absent. Counselor Gallagher?
Here.
Counselor Sheldon?
Here.
Counselor Blum?
Here.
Okay, Laura, then how many signups do we have for audience participation?
Can you see the list there? We have 9 people, starting with Janie Carpenter.
And just a reminder to everybody, we limit to 5 minutes, please. And if somebody's already said what you intended to say, you can just say me too. That's fine. But we appreciate your time, taking time out to speak to us. So we'll go ahead. And first one to sign up is Janie Carpenter. If you could unmute.
Hi, everyone. This is Janie Carpenter. I live at 9 Random Road in the village, and I'm also board president of the Cherry Hills Land Preserve. I'm here tonight because I want to clarify our intentions and objectives regarding our goal to realize the community benefits of Quincy Farm, as we are concerned that those intentions have been misrepresented. We want to be clear that we have the Land Preserve is very committed to Quincy Farm and has been for a long time. We have believed that we had met with the city manager in late December 16th, and to ask about the planned survey. And we voiced our concerns upon learning that the survey was only going to include 2 options, and felt this was simplifying a very complex issue into only 2 choices. And we wanted to be sure that the city, or we believe that the city should consider both the financial concerns as well as the long-term community benefit concerns as part of their decision-making. And we feel that we have always we have made very clear that our commitment is to realize the benefits of Quincy Farm for the community. And we feel that the city-owned option does not need to only include the full master plan option with a potential tax increase, is what we understood that was going to be presented as. But there's also perhaps a lower cost option for maintaining city ownership by partnering with a nonprofit such as the Land Preserve. We feel that this, we have represented this consistently, that our goal is to realize the benefit of the property for and achieve the best possible solution for the community. And we feel that this is not something that our intention is not to compete with the Anderson family proposal, but to provide the community with a third option that is more cost effective and would provide an option for a more realistic option for city ownership. We did communicate with Ms. Anderson that we believe that because Quincy, our mission aligns very strongly with Quincy Farm, the goals of the Quincy Farm conservation easement. We were mentioned in the conservation easement, and we've been committed to it for a very long time. And that our goal is to help activate the property for the community, regardless of ownership. The ownership question is sits with the city, and our goal is to provide education programs and engagement opportunities for our community and conservation initiatives for our community to help realize that. So our commitment to Quincy Farm, we feel that, we're very sorry that there's been misunderstandings back and forth, but we want to clarify that we view this as not, we think it's important that the option of partnering with a local nonprofit is on the table or is part of the city's consideration of a city-owned option. We have submitted two different MOUs to the city to try to specify and describe how we could support city ownership in providing education programs and volunteer opportunities, as well as targeted fundraising to help support Quincy Farm. And we felt that if the city was going to move forward with a survey, that somehow that needed to be a part of the discussion. And so we just want to be clear that we communicated that. We believed we communicated that. We met with city manager on the 16th of December to learn about it and ask whether or not this is an option that might be of interest to the city. We then communicated that to Ms. Anderson on that Friday, the 18th, to say this is something that, because this is our mission, we're not advocating one ownership structure or another, but we feel that the options need to be clear if we're going to ask for feedback from our community. We are disappointed that she feels that we have created a competing offer. We don't see it that way at all. We just think that the community needs to figure out, we need the best possible options for our community that include a strong commitment to community benefit and public open space.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Carpenter. Next, Ms. Weiss.
I yield my time. Janie covered what I was going to cover off. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Ms. Neff.
You are mute.
There. Thank you. Last summer, the city approached Natalie Anderson with the idea of the possibility of her family taking back the deed to the farm. The family agreed, and the city set deadlines for a letter of interest and a draft management plan. Those deadlines were all met, and Natalie presented the plan at the October 20th City Council meeting. The plan included programming that the Cherry Hills Land Preserve would provide as a partner. It was at this meeting that the Cherry Hills Land Preserve's president publicly endorsed Natalie's plan. Prior to that, the Land Preserve's president publicly endorsed the plan at a Quincy Farm Committee meeting. It was then decided that the city would come up with a survey to let citizens weigh in on the matter. Now the direction is to go with an RFP, which actually does make more sense. In the meantime, in late December, the Cherry Hills Land Preserve notified the city that they would be submitting their own plan for the farm, without notifying Natalie of their intent to do so, and thus withdrawing support and programming from her plan. In the past few weeks, a member of the Quincy Farm Committee and the Cherry Hills Land Preserve Board has been soliciting funds for an endowment for the farm, the plan being to make it a repository of local history and a women's museum. This same individual told me that if the city would sell the farm for the low millions, they would snap it up and break the easement. If that was actually a possibility, Colorado Open Lands and similar organizations would cease to exist and no property owner would again put up an easement on their land. The former mayor has the idea that the best use of the farm would be to bulldoze all but the Hopkins house and barn and open it up. That makes 4 other plans or ideas besides Natalie's floating around: bulldozing the property, a museum and a history repository, purchasing it and breaking the easement, and the Cherry Hills Land Preserve's yet to be submitted plan. What is so tragic about all of this is that Kat wished to protect the farm and land she loved and make it a wonderful place for people to enjoy. Yes, the easement is restrictive, but can easily be worked with as demonstrated by Natalie's plan, which Colorado Open Lands has endorsed. A lot of planning and thought went into Kat's decision to do this and grant it to the city. And when she wrote the easement, she thought it would protect the farm in the best possible way. The gift to the city was an incredible gesture, and it was assumed they would consider the responsibility of taking it on and continue the solid stewardship and conservation she demonstrated for over 50 years. Sadly, it is 5 years after Kat's death, and here we are disagreeing over the future of the farm. The farm is referred to as a city asset, and everyone interprets that meaning as, quote, property owned by a person or company regarded as having a dollar value, end quote. Lately, the former mayor, the Quincy Farm and Cherry Hills Land Preserve person, and others keep saying that the property is worth such and such, and the city would be foolish to get rid of it. There is another meaning of the word asset, which has been completely overlooked and which is addressed in Natalie's plan. That definition is, quote, something that has benefit, advantage, strengths, and strong points, end quote. By the farm returning to Natalie's family, it would once again become a viable working farm, growing produce which people would be able to purchase shares of. There will be a multitude of classes and volunteer opportunities, giving people the chance to engage with and participate in the farm. People seem to have the misguided opinion that if it was to return to the family, they will simply lock the gates. Nothing could be farther from the truth, and the family is dedicated to making it a valuable asset for the community, so people will be able to visit and engage in farm life. I have heard more than my share of negative comments about the farm returning to the family. Quote, what if the farm idea doesn't work? What if the family changes their mind, they'll sell it and make money? The family doesn't deserve the farm back because they already made enough money on it, end quote. Turn all those around. What if the farm works? Cherry Hills will then have an historic working farm providing food, education, and entertainment in their city. What if the family changes their mind? The family will not change their mind, and if anyone knew anything about the family, they would know this. The family doesn't deserve the farm back because they already made enough money on it. The farm was a gift to the city. Kat did not make any money on it, but rather spent money creating the easement with the intent of protecting the farm. The naysayers are completely ignoring the fact that Natalie's plan will most likely be a success because it has so much in its favor. COVID has driven people to the outdoors, especially rural areas. Anyone that walks with regularity on the canal or drives on Quincy and Colorado Boulevard by the canal crossings on the weekends will have experienced the exponential increase in traffic. People coming from all over Denver to experience this rural life, if only for a few hours. People are discovering a newfound connection to nature, and the interest in farms and CSAs has increased greatly this past year. To have the farm return to its roots, a working farm would be a wonderful experience for not only village residents, but people from all over. It would become a valuable asset to the city, an asset much more important than a piece of land with a dollar amount attached to it. When she gifted Quincy Farm to Cherry Hills, Kat Anderson trusted the city to be stewards of the farm, to respect and uphold the terms of the easement, and to carry it into the future, taking into account her wishes and desires for the farm she so loved. By returning the farm to her family under Natalie's guidance, Kat's incredible legacy would continue on, and the farm would once again become something the city can be proud of. Who better to continue Kat's 52-year legacy as owner of the farm than her family? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Neff. Appreciate your comments and time tonight. Ms. Green.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Oh, excuse me. I'm Lucinda Green. I am a resident of the village at 2855 Cherry Ridge Road, and I am the chair of the Quincy Farm Committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight as a private citizen. It's been my privilege to serve our community as a volunteer for the past 5 years on the Quincy Farm Committee. I know that many of you on council have been grappling with the same pertinent challenges that faced our committee, and I want to thank you for your dedication. Kat's gift to the community was extraordinary. Therefore, it deserves extraordinary effort and thoughtful consideration as to its highest and best use. Given the prior citizen and staff time spent on the project, I understand the need to move forward at the earliest opportunity. We need to ensure appropriate fiscal responsibility for our taxpayers while also honoring Kat's vision for public access to instill a public appreciation for nature. I believe that an RFP process that casts a wide net to multiple public and private organizations is an appropriate next step. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Appreciate your comments. Mr. Tilton.
Don't think we have him on.
He never joined. I will let council know if he is able to join late.
Thank you. How about then former Councilwoman Klasina Vanderwerf? Has she joined?
Yes, she's there. Cosina?
Let's see, do I need to?
Yep, there we go.
We
We
can
hear
hear
you
you.
now.
Oh, now you're muted.
Okay.
Now you're good.
I'm good now. No, wait a minute.
You're good. Oh. Now you're muted, Klasina.
Okay, good.
Good.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. Klasina Vanderwerf, 5250 East Shenango Avenue. Well, I want to commend the City Council on its decision to pursue an RFP process to determine the future of Quincy Farm. What kind of entity manages and programs it and how that is managed. I do this evening want to repeat a point that I made at an earlier meeting, and that is that I continue to hope that the city will retain ownership of this property. This decision, I think, is a momentous and a consequential one. Quincy Farm is really a once in a city's lifetime gift. And the bottom line for me is that I can't fathom why the city would want to give up control of this property. Over 15 acres located in the heart of the city, one with a wonderful view of the mountains, and also one that spans what is arguably the most important recreational greenway in our region. I totally understand the city not wanting to do the programming and being concerned about ongoing maintenance. That this may not be something the city wants to take on, but what the city is good at is collaborating and working with other organizations. And the city is also excellent at serving the public and serving the community. And I want to be sure that that is something that is not lost, and I fear it would be lost if the city ceases to own the property. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments, Councilor Vanderwerf. Next, Mr. Shermer.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Howard Shermer, live at 4100 East Quincy, quite close to the Quincy Farm. And I originally didn't plan to speak tonight, but after listening to your work session, I really felt I needed to. First of all, I've dealt personally in RFP processes for probably 40 years of my life with the firms, engineering firms, Dames and Moore and CH2M Hill. And we did these things got involved in these all over the world. what we're dealing with here, as I see it, is a very, very complicated picture. It's not going to be simple. The RFP really needs to, well, I should back up a moment. There's really two processes here that can be used. One's the RFP process where the intent is defined, certain parameters are presented, a scoring system is also presented in the RFP to give all that are proposing a fair shot at it. The second way that I've seen in projects in many locations are really unsolicited proposals. And frankly, that's what we probably have here on the table right now. You do have a proposal from the Anderson family. In the unsolicited proposal, typically proposal is tabled for evaluation, and there's the so-called Swiss challenge that is put forward where anyone else can either match, beat the proposal that has been tabled. So you have these two routes, frankly, to follow. I would encourage, since you do not know how many people might be interested in this, that you go through a two-step RFP process. One is an announcement, a short pre-qualification period, such as somebody in Maine that wants to run the farm probably doesn't make any sense and can be ruled out. And then to narrow that to a workable number, to be fair to the various participants that are going to spend their time and their money coming up with a response. And typically that can be anywhere, in my experience, from 3 to 5 organizations, and the others are ruled out at that point. That makes economic sense. So I really wanted to get that out there. I think the pre-qualification, that could have an initial interview stage, or you could, do the interview after you have their proposals to ask questions. But again, until the city really makes the decision of whether they want to own this property or whether they're really looking for somebody else to manage the property, you really have a conundrum. It seems like that is a very first step that it's like you got 1 foot in and 1 foot out. So anyway, those are my thoughts. It's not going to be easy, I can assure you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Appreciate your thoughts and comments. Dr. Jamrich.
Hi, Eric Jamrich, 8 Blackmer Road. I've been interested in the Quincy Farm issue as a neighbor for the last year. My understanding of the October meeting was that the consensus of the City Council was that it could not fund the preservation of the property in line with the easement, and that if it did, the costs versus the benefits to the public, or that the public would receive with the easement in place, would not justify the expenditure. The city then approached the Anderson family, which then put forth a proposal to take the property back, maintaining the easement in its entirety. The decision was made to explore this opportunity in October. I was wondering how far the city had gotten into this exploration and why it's now turning in such an entirely different direction. It also seems curious that there are now multiple proposals being floated, notably some of these by city insiders. And apparently there's been one organization already soliciting contributions for their proposal for Quincy Farm. Where was the formal RFP? Is it appropriate for people to solicit funds for proposals at this point, if there isn't even an RFP out there at this point? Don't these individuals already have an unfair advantage in this process? What happened to the City Council's resolution that it made regarding the Anderson's family's proposal? The council is now looking forward to what it might get from the other proposals. Won't there always be another better possible proposal out there in theory? What was wrong with the proposal that was already presented? Was that even explored? Wasn't the Anderson proposal already most in keeping with the gift and the easement? Didn't it already have substantial support from the council and the community? These questions aren't really rhetorical. They're questions regarding transparency in this process, and I hope that someone will address them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jamich, for your comments. We appreciate them. Next up, former Mayor Chrisman.
Laura, are you muted?
Laura, we still can't hear you.
Emily, can you manually unmute her Zoom function?
She's on the phone, so I can ask her to unmute, but I can't physically do it, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, the mute icon's showing.
I believe it's *6.
Mayor, would you like to move on to Natalie Anderson and we'll
Yeah.
try and get Laura up and working?
See if you can send her an email or something and let her know. And
Yeah.
then let's move on to Ms. Anderson then.
Hi, everyone. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I do want to thank you all for the opportunity to sit in on the study session. I think that was really helpful for me to hear. And I think that the criteria that you all have outlined make a lot of sense. I just wanted to say the only addition that I might suggest is that one of the criteria would be that all activities in any proposal comply with the conservation easement. I know that's a priority of yours. But one of the things that we did in putting our proposal together was reaching out to Colorado Open Lands and having them approve our proposal before submitting it to you all. So that's just something that we might suggest is looping them into the process. I'm sure you're thinking about that, but just in ensuring that any plan that anyone is putting forward does comply with the easement and really getting that approval from them. The other thing I'd like to say is I'd just like to reiterate, I stand behind my comments from the letters that I submitted today. I think that those were fairly clear, but I'd just like to reiterate the first time I ever heard from the Land Preserve, they had already had a meeting with the city to pause the survey process. I spoke with one member of the Land Preserve on that Friday, and they said that they were discussing programming for 2021 with the city during that meeting. And I asked if the Land Preserve was, planning on submitting their own proposal, please let me know. I was told a decision hadn't been made. The board meeting happened on Monday. I said, please let me know. I never heard anything until I heard from the city. So I presumed they hadn't chosen this approach. I was very surprised to learn that they had. And then when I reached out to their board and asked if we could have a meeting, they couldn't make themselves available for another month. So it was a challenging process. I think it's unfortunate, but I just want to say that, I really stand behind the comments in my letter. And we look forward to submitting our proposal as part of the RFP process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. All right, we'll try again. Ms. Crispin, can you hear us?
She did join separately with her
Can you hear
computer,
me
I
now?
think. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Guess my phone decided not to let me speak. Probably should do that more often. I'm just going to take a minute to grab something. I'm sorry. I had to move to another room. Laura Chrisman, 18 Cherry Lane Drive, Cherry Hills Village. And I have already submitted a letter to the city. I will incorporate that by reference into my 5 minutes, and would like to speak to a couple of issues since the initial, and my comments and the initial survey, or the study session, was with regard to the survey. We have now apparently moved to a request for proposal. So I'd like to talk about that just for a couple seconds, but also talk about the importance of public participation in a broader base of our community. We have not had that, and we won't for a while. I understand that the RFP is to condense information so that the community may better understand it. And I do think that's an excellent proposal. I do sympathize with the Anderson family because I think it was unfair to them to approach them until the city had a better idea of what it wanted to do with the property and had gotten more public input. I think that this master plan that was done on Quincy Farms caused a knee-jerk reaction. And a knee-jerk response is rarely a good response. I commend council for wanting to take the time now to really understand each proposal. I would suggest that the Anderson family and the Land Preserve and any other party who so chose to could submit multiple proposals. I do think that that gives, instead of having to pick one, the Anderson family having to pick one or the Land Preserve having to pick one, I think it's good for everyone to say, well, we'd be willing to do this, and here's our proposal. Alternatively, there may not be an alternative, but alternatively, we would also be willing to do this. I do not think that it's a bad thing to have more decisions. But I do think also there should be one proposal that is the city keeps the land and funds it as it deems appropriate under whatever circumstances it also deems appropriate. I do not think that the public can make an adequate decision on this without that information. Again, time is important, not as a concept of the shorter, the faster, the better. The concept should be the most informed, the greatest transparency, the most input. What is the time that that would take? And I do refer you to and I think many of you attended, both Mead Park and Highline Canal Conservancy, and how they interacted with the public to make sure that there was good decision making. And that is what I would advocate. Good decision making based on all of the proposals and all of the possibilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Chrisman. Appreciate your comments and thoughts. I think that's all that signed up, Laura.
Correct.
Thank you, everyone who spoke. That was very, very useful and very, very good. Next, we need to do approval of our minutes, correct? So this is approval of the December 9th, 2020 minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from December 9th, 2020.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilor Sheldon, second by Councilor Wheel. We need a roll call because we're on Zoom.
Counselor Safavi,
Yes.
Counselor Wheel,
Yes.
Counselor Gallagher,
Yes.
Counselor Sheldon,
Yes.
Counselor Blum.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. So they will be adjourned. This is the final adjournment of the outgoing city council. It's 7:05. And just by happenstance, we have all the same members on the new city council, so that nobody will need to get on or off. Everybody can hold on to their Zoom picture. Now, do we need a roll call? Actually, we need to do the oath of office first, right?
Correct.
Okay. So if you'd like to do that, Laura, you have the floor.
Thank you. So we'll do you first, Mayor Stewart. If you can raise your right hand and repeat after me.
Okay.
I, Russell Stewart,
I, Russell Stewart,
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm
that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and of the state of Colorado,
that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and the state of Colorado,
and the charter and the ordinances of the city of Cherry Hills Village,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Cherry Hills Village,
and shall faithfully perform to the best of my abilities the duties of the office of mayor upon which I am about to enter.
and shall faithfully perform to the best of my abilities the duties of the office of mayor upon which I am about to enter.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
And next we will have Counselor Wheel. So if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Randy Wheel,
I, Randy Wheel,
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm
that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and of the state of Colorado,
that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and the state of Colorado,
and the charter and the ordinances of the city of Cherry Hills Village,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Cherry Hills Village,
and shall faithfully perform to the best of my abilities the duties of the office of council member upon which I am about to enter.
and shall faithfully perform to the best of my abilities the duties of the office of council member upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you and congratulations. And now Counselor Blum,
Yes.
you will raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Al Blum,
I, Al Blum,
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm
do solemnly and sincerely and truly declare and affirm
that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and of the state of Colorado,
that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and of the state of Colorado,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Cherry Hills Village,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Cherry Hills Village,
and shall faithfully perform to the best of my abilities the duties of the office of council member upon which I am about to enter.
and shall faithfully perform to the best of my abilities the duties of the office of council member upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you and congratulations. And last but not least, Counselor Sheldon, you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Dan Sheldon,
I, Dan Sheldon,
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm
that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and of the state of Colorado,
that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and the state of Colorado,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Cherry Hills Village,
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Cherry Hills Village,
and shall faithfully perform, to the best of my abilities, the duties of the office of council member upon which I am about to enter.
and shall faithfully perform to the best of my abilities the duties of the office of council member upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you and
Thank
congratulations.
you.
That's great. So now I will call to order at 7:10, the meeting of the Cherry Hills Village City Council, the new organizational meeting. We need a roll call of members.
Councillor Safavi?
Yes. Here.
Councillor Wheel?
Glad to be here.
Councillor Brown is absent. Councillor Gallagher?
Yeah, here.
Councillor Sheldon?
Here.
Councillor Blum?
Here.
First order on agenda item 9, we need to appoint a mayor pro tem.
Mayor, if I may, this I think this was maybe the right time to add
Yeah, sure.
an agenda item to new business. May I do that now?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'd like to add to a new 16, C as in Charlie, discussion of Quincy Farm request for proposals.
Is there any objection?
No.
No objection. It's unanimous. By unanimous consent, we're going to add an agenda item 16C.
Thank you.
Now we can do mayor pro tem appointment. Do I have a motion for appointment of a mayor pro tem?
I move to appoint Katie Brown as mayor pro tem.
Second.
Have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, do we need a roll call?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry. Roll call?
Councillor Safavi?
Yes.
Councillor Wheel?
Yes.
Councillor Gallagher?
Yes.
Councillor Sheldon?
Yes.
Councillor Blum?
Yes.
Thank you.
And we will skip audience participation. We've already done that. And I don't think we have any reports from boards or commissions. Is that correct, Laura?
Correct.
So next is the consent agenda, item 12, A through E. Does anyone wish to remove any of those items for discussion?
I move to.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Councilor Gallagher.
I move to approve consent agenda items A, B, C, D, and E.
Second.
Have a motion and second. A roll call?
Councillor Safavi?
Yes.
Councillor Wheel?
Yes.
Councillor Gallagher?
Yes.
Councillor Sheldon?
Yes.
Councillor Blum?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously.
Thank you
now
to
we
the
come to
judges.
the highlight of the evening. Everybody's been waiting for it, truly. The oath of office for our judges. So Laura, I'll give it to you.
Yes. Judge Wellborn, are you there?
He's dozed off. He's at an age where he just can't handle this past 6 o'clock. And it was 5 o'clock in New York a long time ago.
Well, it's good to have you. If you
Oh,
could
you're
please-
lucky. You're lucky. We found him. Somebody found him.
Okay, if you could raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I, John F. Wellborn,
I, John F. Wellborn,
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm
that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and of the state of Colorado,
that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and of the state of Colorado,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Cherry Hills Village,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Cherry Hills Village,
and shall faithfully perform to the best of my abilities the duties of the office of municipal judge upon which I am about to enter.
and shall faithfully perform to the best of my abilities the duties of the office of municipal judge upon which I'm about to enter.
Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
And then we have Judge Barsh. Are you there?
I am here.
Let's hear it for Judge Barsh. God love her.
Judge Barsh, if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I, Karen Barsh,
I, Karen Barsh,
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm
that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and of the state of Colorado,
that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and of the state of Colorado,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Cherry Hills Village,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Cherry Hills Village,
and shall faithfully perform to the best of my abilities the duties of the office of alternate municipal judge upon which I am about to enter.
and shall faithfully perform to the best of my abilities the duties of the office of alternate municipal judge upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Judge Wellborn and Judge Barges. We look forward to a great year. Thank you for all you've done dealing with the COVID too in the courts. So we know it's been a challenge.
What's interesting is that the COVID came through the police department and to a certain extent the courts, and neither judge became ill. So there's a certain toughness, I think, that goes along with the job.
You gotta be tough. Gotta be tough. Keep it up and keep well. All right. Thank you very much. And
thank you.
Thanks for
Bye
being
bye.
here, and thank you for all you do. We really appreciate your service.
Thank you guys for all you're doing. What we've experienced so far this evening reminds me of what work this is. You're wonderful.
Well,
you're absolutely wonderful.
And
Thank
I
you.
second that.
Well, it's a pleasure to serve. Next, we have no unfinished business. New business. Council liaison assignments, I think, are going to stay pretty much, but Laura, would you like to I'll give you the floor to talk about those.
Yes, thank you.
Make sure that everybody is okay with your current assignments.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Members of City Council, we do have the liaison assignments that we review at the beginning of the year with the organizational meeting standardly. So if there are any changes that you'd like to make, now is the time to do that. But since there is no turnover, it's not necessary if no one wants to change.
Just a point of correction. Midway through the year, Russell and I switched positions at the Arapahoe County Transportation Forum. So Russell became the liaison and I'm the alternative, or alternate, I should say.
Yeah, I think that would be.
Okay,
I'm
we'll
happy
make
with
that.
that. I'd be happy to do that. I think it's probably appropriate given what they do.
Looks good.
I guess,
All right.
a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have we ever done anything formally in terms of legal liaisons? Has that always been the mayor's position, or?
No, but
There's
I was the legal liaison when I was on council for 8 years.
So why isn't it on our list here?
Didn't make the list, I guess, after I got up. I don't know.
Yeah.
It should make the list, I think. We do need a legal liaison, and I've been doing that. And so, I've been also looking at the billing statements that Kathy does. So if anybody ever has any interest in those, she sends those and I review those monthly to make sure what's going on. But we did have discussion about this, I think, 2 years ago about, I remember Councilor Blum was saying, I think we all agreed that everybody should be able to contact Kathy if they have questions about this, and we don't want to run it through me. I don't want to be the gatekeeper for council members. I think if council members have an issue, they need to contact Kathy, and she's experienced enough to know, what's appropriate and what's not, and how to deal with the council members. So I think we keep it that way. I'm liaison in the sense that I helped out with the contracts, and the contracts that we approved tonight with judges. I helped Kathy with those, and I do that kind of. I work in the background with Kathy on those things.
Is that something, Russell, that you want to share with? You've got another attorney on, in Al on council. Is that? I just throw it out there. This is the time to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do it. It's kind of fun. I enjoy it. And anybody else who wants to review her bills or be involved, I think Councilor Blum, I think, is really good service on the round table. I want to keep him there on for the noise.
Russell, if you, it's up to you, but if you're, I'd be interested in doing that if that's okay. It's up to you though.
Okay.
Since you've
Let's
done
think
that,
about it.
but I would volunteer to take that position if it, I didn't realize we had a position there, so. If you want, I would volunteer to do that.
Okay, let's think about that with Kathy and that. And it's not really, I'll tell you, it's not really that much heavy lifting. I would say that probably these contracts with it, this is the first time we've had contracts with the judges. I don't think in our history we've had them before, and it is best practices to have those written out. And I like what we collected samples from Colorado Municipal League, so that's one thing that I have access to. I have access to all of their templates and all of their examples that they have at CML. So it does make sense for me to do it. But Al, if you want to help, we can work out something for you to help. I'm more than happy to share some of that burden with you.
Sure, no problem. I volunteer to help you out on that.
Okay. All right. Good. I don't think we need any action on that, do we, Laura? Other than people telling you what they want.
We do have a recommended motion,
Is there a motion?
On the memo.
I'll entertain a motion then. Someone wants to make one.
I move to approve the city council liaison assignments as attached to the January 5th, 2021 staff memorandum with the following updates. Mayor Stewart is taking the lead on the Arapahoe County Transportation Forum, and Councilor Gallagher is the alternate.
Second.
Motion a second. Can we have a roll call? Laura?
Councilor Savabi,
Yes.
Councilor Wheel,
Yes.
Councilor Gallagher,
Yes.
Councilor Sheldon,
Yes.
Councilor Blum.
Yes.
Okay, now we have last item of new biz 16B, resolution 4, series 2021 concerning reappointment of an alternate member to the Board of Adjustment. Laura.
Good evening again, Mayor Stewart, members of City Council. Because of the way our code is written, it has an alternate member from City Council on the Board of Adjustment and Appeals. This is similar to, but different than the liaison assignments. Councilor Wheel has been serving this role for the last 2 years and has expressed his desire to continue serving this role. And staff is happy to answer any questions.
If there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 4, Series 2021, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cherry Hills Village concerning the reappointment of an alternate member to the Board of Adjustments and Appeals.
Second.
Motion a second. Laura, can you take a roll call, please?
Councilor Savabi,
Yes.
Councilor Wheel,
Yes.
Councilor Gallagher,
Yes.
Councilor Sheldon,
Yes.
Councilor Blum.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Next, item 16C on our amended agenda. Councilor Sheldon.
Yeah, I think we concluded during our study session that this is something that we want to do, and I would go as far as to make a motion. I make a motion to instruct our staff to draft a request for proposals for the possible transfer of management and ownership of the Quincy Farm.
I would second that.
You have a second?
And I guess I should note, I should have given this little preface before I made the motion, but for other council members' benefit, for staff's benefit, and for those on the line, I think it is the intent of council and staff, if we pass this motion, to let staff, work with everything they heard during our study session and try to craft this RFP in such a way that really reflects what we discussed today, taking into account everything that they heard. I should also note, though, that I think a timeline of coming back to our next meeting on the 19th is with something to actually act on, I think is darn near impossible. That would mean that staff would have to have it in our packets by next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow.
to be looking at for discussion less than a week later. I just think it's a little hasty for us to try to ram this thing down and get it done in any quick manner. And frankly, I'd like to kind of revert back to what Mayor Chrisman said. We need to take our time and do it right. And I frankly agree with her that if it means more public process, maybe that is the answer, but certainly not rush through trying to get an RFP out to the world. I think we need to really think it through and do it right. And so whether it's January 19th or February 2nd or second one in February or whenever it comes out, but we need to do it right. We owe it to our citizens. We owe it to the Anderson family. We owe it to the legacy of Kat to make sure that we do it right. So with that, my motion, and I think a second is out there.
Is that Councilor Blum who seconded? I didn't hear.
I did.
Yeah.
So we have a motion second. I think I agree, Councilor Sheldon. We can take our time. There's no huge rush in this. I mean, the property isn't going anywhere. It's sitting there. And I think that taking our time is entirely appropriate. And I think that, I think maybe if Chris can report back to us at the next meeting, but maybe have, how it's going, maybe we could have further discussion on it, but maybe target the 1st of February or the first or second meeting in February to actually have something to us.
Mayor, this is Al. I've got a question as to what kind of expenses are we incurring now while we do this? Maybe Chris can answer that.
Yeah, well, we have a budgeted amount, and Chris, for each year. So Chris can probably tell us what, I think our budget amount was $70,000 a year, wasn't it, Chris, for maintenance of that right now?
Yeah, I'm actually going to let Director Goldie or Parks Coordinator Black chime in with more specifics. But yeah, we're just now starting the new budget year, so we've got sort of our fresh. I do think it's around 70,000 that we budget, and a lot of that is obviously going to be through staff time. So.
Yes, this is Director Goldie. We have about $70,000 budgeted. We haven't spent all of those funds in the past years. That's just our baseline number in case, a pump in the well breaks down or something major comes up that we have to fix. Our costs really are just the upkeep of the grounds during the summer and making sure everything's secure out there all winter. We've got police that go through there. Our staff goes through there. And so the baseline is right there at that $70,000.
Jay, while I have you, a question I've got is the status of the pond. What is the status there? Because it looks like it's deteriorating.
Well, this about August, the aquifer had gone dry, so we were unable to fill the pond. We thought it may have been a pump issue. For about the last week and a half now, we have been able to pump water. We have refilled the pond and turned off the pump, so we'll have water in there all winter for the wildlife as when it freezes and unfreezes. But when you say deteriorate, do you mean the water quality?
Yes, it seemed very stagnant and very low. I haven't been by there the past week, but if that's refilled, I'll go by there and take a look at it.
Yeah, that was due again to the aquifer drying out. We are going to lower the pump just so we can go a little longer. But as soon as everybody stopped pumping, we were able to get a little water into that pond for the winter. So we'll keep working on that.
Thank you.
Hey, Jay, while you're there, are there, whatever happened to the aerators? Did we find them?
No, we have, the aerators were never in the ponds. When we took over that, we have no idea where those went or if they were not functioning and taken out before we took over. But no, since we've taken over, there has been no aeration in those ponds.
Is that important to the health of a pond?
Yes, it is. When you're managing a pond, the water quality for the fish, for the other wildlife around, for the vegetation, it becomes important. But you have to do it in conjunction with a lot of other things. keeping the weeds and the algae blooms down and those type of things. So it is one important factor in the health of a pond, yes.
Thank you.
A comment, Dan, I wholly agree with your motion. The other thing I'd add is and I think it may be swept up with the comment about, the discussion we had in the study session, but I would like to be sure that Chris and the staff kind of give us some feel for the process involved as well. Beyond just the document, the solicitation, the time frame, the evaluation, maybe not in great detail, but at least start to sketch out that set of the surround, if you will, around the RFP itself.
You're not talking about right now, Randy, right? You're talking about over the next week, you want to start seeing what the rough outline, timeline, stuff like that starts looking like.
Yeah, as they come back to us in the, first meeting in February or so, beyond the RFP itself, it will be good to get that context around it, the process part.
Yeah.
Agreed. And I think we can do that.
Good. Just one clarification about the Quincy Farm, the cost. I don't think, correct me, Jay, if I'm wrong, but I don't think that we separately, our parks crews do not separately account for their time on Quincy Farm, right? So it's just.
No, that's just cost above and beyond the hours that we spend there. That's materials,
right,
electricity, all of those other things.
So there is a cost. There's a cost there, Councillor Blum, of that's really not recorded in the 70,000, which is our staff time that those guys are out there. It goes into the park and the general park expense.
Just as a point of clarification, I apologize. We had dropped the amount for Quincy Farm maintenance this year because we weren't spending quite that amount of money. So the amount that we've allocated this year for general maintenance is $25,000 and $12,000 for the utilities. And we do have an extra $10,000 in that account that we had originally planned to use for the survey. So the total is about $47,000 total spending on Quincy Farm right now outside of staff time.
Did we have any amount for the engineering engineers to look at the pond? Do we budget for that?
I don't believe that we did.
We did not. It's not in the 2021 budget.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to request that we, I don't know if this discussion is really germane to the motion I made. I'd like to see if we can't move on with this motion and then maybe discuss this under reports or something else. I think the motion's out there. I'd like to act on it.
I was going to call for a vote right now.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Laura, if you could take a vote, please.
Councillor Safavi?
Yes.
Councillor Wheel?
Yes.
Councillor Gallagher?
Yes.
Councillor Sheldon?
Yes.
Councillor Blum?
Yes.
Okay, that is the end of new business. Now we're on to reports. My report is.
Mayor, the Charlie Park GID.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we need to adjourn our city council meeting at this time and call to order the meeting of the Cherry Hills Village Charlie Park Third Filing General Improvement District Board.
Just pause the city council meeting
and that's at 7. I have 7:33. So we'll take a roll call.
Board Member Safavi?
Here.
Board Member Wheel?
Here.
Board Member Brown is absent. Chair Stewart?
Yes.
Board Member Gallagher?
Here.
Board Member Sheldon?
Here.
And Board Member Blum?
Here.
We have consent agenda item 19, A through C. Does anybody wish to withdraw any item from the consent or otherwise to make a motion?
I move to approve consent agenda items A, B, and C.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Laura?
Board Member Safavi?
Yes.
Board Member Wheel?
Yes.
Chair Stewart?
Yes.
Board Member Gallagher?
Yes.
Board Member Sheldon,
Yes.
and Board Member Blum.
Yes.
That passes unanimously. We have, I believe, no unfinished business, and unless somebody has new business, I have 7:35 to be adjourned of the board. And then we will reconvene at 7:35, the meeting of the Cherry Hills Village City Council, which item 24 reports. I'll go first. I don't have much to report. I had a great vacation skiing in Crested Butte, so I don't have a lot to report on. It was terrific time, and the snow was great. But I would say one thing I wanted to report on and note was our new court clerk, Jason Johnson. Is that right? Welcome to him, and everybody should know that he was it's in the crier. He was a member of the national championship team, basketball team for Metro State Division II in 2000. Quite a accomplishment. He's a heck of a so we probably ought to think if we want a basketball team now for our village, because he could carry us all on his shoulders, I'm sure. He sounds, welcome him. I wanted, if you guys could let him know, welcome him to the job. He sounds like he's a great hire. Thanks for doing that, Chris. I wanted to also give a shout out to the crier for the news article about the PTRC and asking for public input on electric vehicles on the Highline Canal. I've gotten a lot of comments from people and citizens, so I'm really happy the PTRC's taking that on, and I was very happy to see that it's in the crier and being advertised for people to give their comments and thoughts about that. That's all I have. Members of City Council, Councilor Blum.
Yeah, the only thing I have, and I went over to Laura today. I had a constituent raise concern about he showed an article, I guess, Laura, you distributed that to everybody, where the question is about commercial drones. Are we going to do we have a policy, or will we have a policy dealing with it? Because the article states that that's the wave of the future. And if we have drones flying around the city delivering Amazon stuff, there probably is a legitimate concern about noise and pollution and every other thing. So I know he had raised that. I guess, Laura, you're going to present that to council.
Yep, I was going to reacquaint myself with our current code. We do address drones. We do have some regulations. I just haven't read it for a while to know how it applies to commercial drones in particular. But yes, I will be bringing more information to council about that coming up.
Al, if there's an article, could you circulate it and give it to Laura to circulate so we could see it?
I do have it. I just didn't get a chance just before the council meeting to send it to everyone, but I'll definitely do that.
Thank you.
If I could just chime in, I've started looking at that too. I saw that headline, and those proposed rules are going to affect 60 days from publication in the Federal Register. And our current requirements are mostly registration. It's going to be interesting to see what preemption applies, what police powers still remain, but we'll be digging into that.
So the real question is, can we do anything to overrule that or control what our airspace is?
Yeah, that's the real question. So.
No other report.
Okay, Councilor Sheldon, report.
Just a couple of really quick things. The 75th anniversary committee did a great job in the Villager with their news articles. I don't think we covered this in the December 6th or 9th meeting, yeah. But I found some of that information fascinating that I did not know about the village that was in those articles. So kudos to that team that put that together. Two questions, and then I'll be quiet and I'll let our staff answer them. I guess it's when staff's doing their reports, but has the country club pulled their permit yet? And when is our staff and police department scheduled to be vaccinated? That's it. Thank you.
So a comment on the financial statements. Just kudos to staff. Looks like it's going to finish as just an outstanding year, and just good job managing our resources, managing our people, and our money. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Wheel.
Not much to report. The DRCOG work session was canceled earlier this month, and I do want to thank Jay and crew for moving the immovable CDOT, put the do not block X's over at a couple of locations that were on the tab, and it's working out great. Thank you. That's all I have.
Councillor Savati.
No reports.
Chris, City Manager.
Yes, good evening. I do have a few things. Again, first of all, Arapahoe County was recently moved by the governor to an orange status. It sounds impressive. However, he did that for every county that was in red across the state. It does mean, though, that there is a possibility that the state and CDPHE may be using more of an overall larger picture view about evaluating these as opposed to a more micro level county by county analysis. It's interesting because at the same time, the state was also kicking off the 5-star program, which Arapahoe County aggressively applied for and received the variance for. We are obviously participating with the county on that project, and we actually already have our first approved 5-star facility in the city, which is the Glenmore Country Club. I think for a lot of restaurants, especially elsewhere, there's not a lot of benefit now compared to the orange status that the county is in, other than that they will have the opportunity after 7 days of 2 weeks of good readings to be able to move to the yellow level. Once the county has 2 weeks of orange level readings, which is a 7-day head start over their competitors. But for a lot of restaurants that are just barely holding on, I think, especially in some other communities that have a high number of restaurants, apparently they are taking a pass on the program. So, but we are still making it available. We've reached out to all of our eligible businesses, and so we're ready to go. I also want to echo Councillor Gallagher's comments about the budget. For this being the first time for me to go through that budget process, I cannot thank staff enough. All the directors have done a great job, especially through COVID, not knowing what that was going to mean with managing expenses. Just a great job across the board. And then a special thanks to Director Sager, to Jessica for the great work that she has done at staying on top of this. We are ending this year in such a good spot compared to where we could have been. So I really want to thank all the staff for their great work on that. Councilor Sheldon, in regards to the country club permit, they have submitted their building permit. It has been approved by planning. So it is currently now under review by engineering and building code. So our building safety contractor. So we are aggressively moving forward with that permit. Finally, the last update I guess I have, and Mayor Stewart, I don't know if you saw this email because it was very late in the day, but we did get an update from the I-25 Bellevue Interchange project. It sounds like Denver is footing the bill to revisit some earlier alternatives that were eliminated through the analysis process. And they expect this new evaluation, or I guess it's a new old evaluation, to take an additional 6 months. I think the technical team that I sit on will meet monthly, and then the executive committee that Mayor Stewart is on will meet periodically throughout that process. But it sounds like Denver is wanting to still see what else is out there that might help. I took that to mean that they are wanting to try and find a solution that works for everybody, but we'll see. So no resolution on that, and there will be some more analysis. So that's the last update I have.
Chris, this is Al. I've got a question on the governor going to the level orange. To me, it seemed counterintuitive that we went from a 6%, today it's 11%. infection rate, it seems to me counterintuitive to go to open things up when the infection rate's increasing every day. So I don't know if you have any input on that, or we have any input with the governor, if you've heard anything.
Yeah, on some of the Tri-County and state calls that I've been on, I think since the third wave high peak in late November, the Thanksgiving tsunami, as it keeps getting called, the numbers had kept increasing at a pretty good clip, and statewide, and everybody's numbers were decreasing sort of at the same rate. So I think they were trying to suggest that instead of looking at it county by county, maybe we could look at it at a state level. They, however, have been very clear and consistent that all of this movement is sort of waiting to see what happens after the holiday potential for, as families got back together and there were more private gatherings, that those numbers could, in fact, start getting really bad quickly again. And they definitely wanted everyone to know that they're reserving the right to change some of those. But I do think it represents a change in approach, that instead of looking at it county by county, trying to look at it from a more regional basis.
Chris, did you have an update as far as when staff and PD is scheduled, if scheduled yet, for vaccination?
Yeah, the chief and I have been talking about that. I'll let her address it more specifically, but there have been some conversations with Tri-County and the county, and that would probably roll out, but we are exploring some additional opportunities as well, on top of those, the sort of the more typical traditional route. But I'll let the chief talk about it. I kind of stole her update, so sorry, chief.
Yeah, I can add a little bit about that with the Metro Mayor's Caucus and the governor was on the line. His focus was on the ICU availability, which the ICU availability is very good. So the hospital availability is good. So he's focusing more. The reason he said he went down to Orange was because the hospitals can take it. And particularly now that the vaccines, all the 1As have all been vaccinated, all of the staff at Swedish and everybody place else has received vaccinations. So that was it's more of a focus on the hospital availability now, rather than just on the sheer numbers. And also a very, the Metro Mayor's Caucus was just about unanimous and saying, you're killing us with the restaurant closures, particularly when the federal government, is delaying its reimbursements. It's unlike last spring when the money was flowing. It's not now. So that's really, I think, what was behind the change. All right.
So I'll let any other directors who have updates. Maybe we start with the chief since we're on the topic of.
Yeah.
Sounds wonderful. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone. So a couple of things I'd like to report. First of all, your police department is fully healthy again. There is no one out ill with whether it be COVID or flu or anything at this time. And again, I'd like to compliment my staff. There was very, very minimal use of having to change people's schedules, having to use overtime. And I'm just real proud of them. That was a big thing. We learned a lot, but everybody is healthy right now, and we're taking steps to make sure that stays in place. Secondly, obviously the question of the vaccines. Yes, Chris pretty much gave you my update. I have been working with several different entities, including our county and others, to come up with a plan for Cherry Hills Village PD. I unfortunately don't have any dates. I don't have approximations even. So I'm hoping to get many of those things at least possibly solved and a plan this week, if not next week. So I will certainly keep everybody updated. It is I think it's a little bit more complicated than has been disseminated with regard to the press and things. So we're going to work through it all though, and we've got some great standing partners and probably some excellent new partners. So I will keep you updated.
And I have a follow-up on that, Chris, and I don't know if you read this, or maybe Russell, if you might have read this, but I read it either in the CML update or a tri-county update or something, but they're gonna get the state elected officials vaccinated first, and then they're gonna eventually work their way down to municipal level elected officials. So I mean, I don't know if that puts us in line before our neighbors who are not elected officials and not on the front lines or not working in a nursing home or something. But do you know any update on that about whether or not us as electeds get in that line? And it really doesn't make any difference to me either way. I've had it, been there, done that. So on the backside of it.
I have not. What I know is that there's this chart, and I think the chief is referring to this very simplistic graphic that talks about phase 1A and phase 1B, and then there's a line within B that goes, it's almost like a phase 1B A, and then a phase 1A B. After the A, where the dashed line is on that graphic, they don't know, and they have not released what are called the occupational categories yet of what is in what category, and that applies to municipal employees as well, beyond the police department, beyond the first responders. So we are all still waiting to hear the release of these occupational categories for where it falls within those things. I have not heard elected officials being called out separately. That doesn't mean that doesn't exist, but I just haven't heard that. We will absolutely look into that.
Chris, this is Al. As far as the assisted living, our facility down the street, we have a contract with CVS that's coming in January 19th. So the question I got for the city, for the chief, do we have a contract with an agency such as CVS or Walgreens that we will have them deliver or set it up so that they can deliver the vaccines to our police department?
No, we do not. We have talked with folks about offering up space for that, and what will probably happen is this will be clinic bound. In other words, whether it's UC Health or Kaiser or any place, there will not be an on-site with regard to the dissemination of vaccine. It will probably go through a clinic. The other piece of this that I think is interesting is that even if you're up, it's your turn, 1A, 1B, or whatever, the appointments are made, and then the schedule is opened by the number of vaccines available to whatever entity is getting them, whether it be Kaiser, UC Health, Concentra, or whatever. So even though your number may be up and they say you're ready for scheduling, the schedule does not open up until it's based on the amount of vaccine they get. Now, that's my interpretation of many conversations that I've been having. It's just an FYI. There's nothing in there anybody can do, but with the discussion, I thought you should know that.
Which is why I applaud the chief for, sort of trying to look at this from many angles and not just, the county angle only. And so we are looking at other options for that reason.
And there was a call, I was on a call with John Douglas today, the Arapahoe County call, and they said all this is under discussion. One, about whether the hospitals will serve this role as to doing the shots. Originally, they had said no, they were just going to do their own people and not do everybody else. But now they're discussing maybe they will do 1B. So that's under discussion. The other thing is a discussion of stretching out like England did, of stretching out the vaccines. So you have the first dose and the second dose of giving more people the first dose, and then relying for later and doing the second jab some later time, or trusting that it's coming at a later time. So right now they're only giving half of the doses because they're holding the other half for the second dose that comes in 3 weeks. So they're all considering right now whether it would make more sense and save more lives, frankly, to give everybody a first dose and then do the second dose whenever they can do it. There's also a lot of discussion that Dr. Douglas was talking today about. They don't know what these categories are that Chris is talking about. I mean, who's essential? You know, they're talking about essential employees. Well, as they said, is a librarian essential employee? You know, who is? You know, are we essential? They don't know. But, you know, obviously, if people who deal with the public, but all those decisions haven't been made, and they're all under discussion right now about who's going to be in line and who's first in line and who's essential.
Okay.
So more to come. Any other directors' reports?
I have a report. Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. As I mentioned in one of the weekly updates, staff submitted the final request to Arapahoe County to use the remaining CARES funds for substantially dedicated payroll reimbursement, and it was approved. We actually received the wire today. So at this point, the city has received the full $616,000 from the county that was allocated.
That's great. Congrats.
Good. Yeah.
That's all I have.
Good job. Thank you, Jessica. Anyone else? Matthew? City Attorney?
I have one update, maybe apropos on the night of everyone's re-inauguration. So I've told you in the past about the battle between the mayor of Glendale and the Colorado Independent Ethics Commission. And as you're aware, the city has its own ethics code, and this is quite germane as a home rule city. So that lawsuit procedurally ended in some dead-end declarations by the Court of Appeals that the judicial branch did not have the jurisdiction over the IEC unless there was an actual sanction at play. It's essentially a ripeness issue for the lawyers in the bunch, but they haven't given up the fight yet. On December 10th, City of Glendale filed a new lawsuit in Denver District Court asking for declaratory and injunctive relief on the home rule issue, claiming that all the Glendale officials are not sure whether state or local ethics laws govern their behavior. So CML supporting that as a amicus curiae on the home rule question. So continue to stay tuned, but this is another development that could have significance for you all. That's my update.
All right. Hearing no other comments, going once, going twice. I'll have, if I can have, ask for unanimous consent to be adjourned.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned. Without objection, we are adjourned at, what time is it? 7:56 I have. Got in before 8.
Good job, everyone. Happy New Year.
Yep.
Happy New Year. It's a good
Thank
meeting.
you.
See you all.
Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Stay safe, everyone.